Hello everybody, I should be on now. And I see volume, so that cold hands. It's a pretty intense song to play. I hope you liked it. It was a bit scary actually to play this live on the computer because it's a very powerful song. Can you hear me? Or if I'm talking to myself, that's fine too. It's all right. There you go. Yeah, we need a little bit of space on this side because today I'm going to be a serious teacher, so we need a little bit of space. All right, so what's up? Who's here? Indrajit, of course, as always. Good to see you. Marcel, hello. Bertie, what's up? How are you today? You ready to rock? Good. Stevo, hello Stevo. Hey Stevo, I have to thank you. It's too much. By the way, everybody, I do get your support and your donations on PayPal, and it's too much. I really appreciate it because it makes it feel to me that, this is really useful for you, that it has some value, but really, you guys are too kind. So thanks again, everyone. And Gonzo, what's up? Hello, great, thank you, amazing, thank you. And the Marshall's Power, yes, it is a cool beast actually. This amp gave me problems live for a few months or years, and then one day decided that it would work. And so it's been working perfectly ever since I stopped playing live for the virus. Go figure. So, and it's loud, I played really loud, like stage volume, because it goes into the speaker simulator with the aux, the universal audio thing. So I actually cranking it, and it's doing great. I have no idea what happened. All right, everybody. So, you saw my slide there, but why don't we get to it straight away? Before we get going, everybody, this is the newly minted music talk, formerly known as live masterclasses, but we do it every Saturday at 6:30 Central European Time. I haven't looked up strange time zones today, so it's 12:30 p.m. if you're in New York, and 9:30 in the morning if you're in California, but you can figure everything out. The time by yourself, or YouTube will help you out. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do hit the bell, because then you'll know when I'm live, and sometimes I post videos during the week as well. And today I'm going to teach you the circle of fifths, because it was a request, I think, by Indrajit. Is that correct? And so I think it's a very cool topic, and I'm going to show it to you and maybe teach you a little bit how you can go about learning it. And it's very important to learn the circle of fifths, because if you have a really good grasp of it, and I mean good, I mean you really actually know it, then pretty much everything else in music can be brought back to it. You can actually bring back to the circle of fifths not only the minor scale and the diatonic modes, Dorian, Phrygian, all those, but you can actually work your way back to the circle of fifths with more complex scales like the harmonic scales and all the modes, and even the melodic minor scale with all its modes, which is already plenty. And then if you want to study more exotic scales and world scales, they all seem to kind of work their way back to regular intervals. For example, Indian music, if Indrajit can attest to it, and my other friends here who are from India or Sri Lanka and other countries that are well versed in Indian classical music, most of the scales are actually reconduced back to our modes. So as a matter of fact, the first 8 scales or 7 scales you learn in classical Indian music are the modes with different names. But then this goes on to Turkey, to Greece. There's a lot of great Greek scales, and a lot of them begin at least with the major scale or minor, or a basic mode like a Dorian mode, which is then modified, or sometimes this one extra note is added as a chromatic. So it's a very important thing to understand, especially if you want to figure things out by yourself, because it will give you the tools. If something is complex or too complicated, you can kind of work your way back and go, okay, well, I don't understand everything about this, but I can go back to my circle of fifths, compare it to a scale that I know well, and then just apply the, whatever differences. Okay, so it's extremely important, and we'll get into a little bit more of that as we go on. But I prepared a little bit of a visual aid for you, and do forgive me, this is not what I do, obviously, but wait, this is it, right? So let me move this way a little bit. All right, so please do post in the chat room during this little chat because I don't mind it at all. As a matter of fact, it keeps it interesting for me as well. And then I know you're not asleep, which is a great thing to know. Let me just lower the light at the back a little bit. I'm sorry, it's terrible manners to be on your phone, but there you go, okay? So I don't have this sci-fi Blade Runner light on my head. Okay, so you, as a matter of fact, feel free right now as I'm talking to you to also let me know how much you do know about the circle of fifths, okay, and how far you've gotten with it. And then at the end, of course, we'll open it up to questions. And today maybe we'll keep it to the circle of fifths and fourths, all right? So here's the circle of, there is the circle of fifths emptied out, so there's no information on it. But you can see if you count, you know, it's like a clock. So if you count the little hands there, you'll see that there's 12 spaces that we can fill out. And 12 spaces, luckily for us, give us an approximation of an actual watch or a clock. So that's what I would use sometimes. I would say at 3 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, so you can actually see it on the clock. And there's 12 notes in our system of music. So there's the 7 natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then there's the 5 sharps or flats. And the idea here is that any scale that can be built on a note, let's take C major, for example. So if we build a major scale over C, that gives us C, D, E, F, G, A, B, which is something that I think everybody knows. But the idea here is that whatever can be built over one note can be built exactly the same over all other notes. And so that's why we have 12 slots here, because whatever works in a, you know, if we do it on the major scales, and that's what we're going to do today, then we can have major scales starting on every single note. If we change the note from which we start the major scale, the notes of each major scale will have to be, of course, different than the notes of the previous one. Otherwise, we would be in the previous one. Let me give you an example. If C major is C, D, F, G, A, B, it's impossible that E major could be E, F, G, A, B, C, D. It cannot be an E major scale and a C major scale at the same time. Okay, so these will be 12 different scales. They will be the same kind of scale, so they will all be the major scale, but they will be different scales, different results, different notes that make up these scales. All right, so where to begin? The easiest place, of course, is up top at 12 o'clock, where we have C major. Now, the idea here is that C major sits up there at 12 o'clock or 0, because that's where we have 0 flats or sharps. So we know that if we build a major scale, we're going to have whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. That's a formula everybody knows. If you don't know it, please go back to our major scale video, but it's extremely simple. You take any note and you go a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and the result will be a major scale. And if we apply it to C, we end up, luckily, because it's pretty cool to have a simple scale, with no sharps and no flats. So literally, our scale up there is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. That's it. So all the white keys on a piano, all natural notes on a guitar, and so on. All right? Even some instruments are a lot easier to play in certain keys, and C major is probably the easiest scale to learn. And also when you read music, if you do, because if you read tablature, it doesn't really matter if it's a 9 or a 6 or a 7, right? But if you read music, the key of C major, it has no sharps and no flats, so it's a lot easier to read it, because an F is an F. It's not, you don't have the doubt, is it an F sharp or is it, you know, whatever it is. Okay, so that's C major. I think we can all agree that C major has no sharps and no flats. Can we? So I'm going to wait 1 second for you to let me know if you're following. I'm sure you are, but if you're not, feel free to ask. You know, there's no stupid questions. There might be a stupid answer, though, because I know me. Indraji says that I use it for changing between scales and practicing. All right, that's a good practice for it, yes. All right. So I see no questions. Don't worry about it. If you're still writing, I'll get back to you. All right. So please do. If you have questions up to this point, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to continue. We're saying that there's 12 scales we can build. So why is it called the circle of fifths? Because if we apply whole step, half step, whole step, half step to all notes, so to all the 12 notes, we end up, of course, with 12 different major scales. And each of these major scales will end up with certain sharps or flats. Okay, and we'll get to it. But the cool thing about it is that the scale that has 0 sharps or flats, which is C, comes right before the scale that has only 1 sharp, which is G. And I'm going to put it right there for you. And G only has 1 sharp. And now the cool thing is that if we go, and G is the 5th of C, C, D, E, F, G. Now, if I go up a 5th from G, G, A, B, C, D, that's where my next major scale will be. And this will be a major scale that has 2 sharps. And as you can guess, we can work our way around the circle by going a 5th of a 5th of a 5th of a 5th. All right? But there's a question that can come up now, because if G sharp has a sharp, if G major has a sharp, you can say, well, that's fine, but which one is it? Because it doesn't help you to know that out of the 7 notes of G major, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, one of them is sharp if you don't know which one it is. Okay? You might be able to actually improvise over any major scale without knowing the notes, because as long as you know the cage system or 3 notes per string or whatever it is that you know, you can actually move your finger on the fretboard and they will, the fingers will give you the right notes. But for example, what chords are you going to play? If you're in G major, what are the chords of G major? You need to know if there's any sharps and where they fall so you can build the correct chord. Also, if you want to improvise properly, you don't want to just move your fingers up and down the neck and see what happens. You might say, okay, well, I like the sound of this note over that chord, of that note over that chord. And that also comes from knowing what notes you can play, which ones you cannot. So basically, it's not enough to know that oops, this is weird. All right, that here at G o'clock, at 1 o'clock, there's 1 sharp. We want to know which one it is. And we also want to know in D major that has 2 sharps, we want to know which ones those are. And here's where this little thing comes in. Okay, let's worry about just the sharps for now. So you see this sharp and this little arrow that I designed, obviously, so well. And you see that there's a list of notes. And this is the order in which the sharps appear, which is really cool. This is a lot easier than it could have been. Because if G major only has 1 sharp, that sharp will be F. And in fact, the G major scale is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. Okay? And so that's a great news. You can know that it only has 1 sharp, but you can also very quickly figure out which one it is by memorizing this little list of 7 notes. It's pretty simple. If we move up to D major, and now here's why it's simpler than it could have been. Imagine that G major had 1 sharp and it was F, and then D major had 2 sharps and they were like E and A, nothing to do with the one before. Well, luckily, it's not like that. Luckily, as we move down the circle of fifths, we always add 1 sharp to the ones before. So G major had only 1 sharp, which was F. D major will have F and C. All right? So that's one of the tricks you have to know about the circle of fifths. It always works. It works all the way up until we have all 7 sharps. Okay, so going back again, the circle of fifths gives you the right notes, the amount of sharps or flats in any major scale. And we go from one scale to the other by following the simple rule of fifths. So if C sits up there at 12 o'clock, wait, can you see here? There we go. G will sit at 1 o'clock because G is the 5th of C. And then there will be D because D is the 5th of G. G, A, B, C, D. If we count a 5th from D, D, E, F, G, A, we're going to find out that the next scale is A. And then the 5th of A is E. And then the 5th of E is B. All right? So B, sorry, I have to figure this out. B is the 5th of E is the 5th of A is the 5th of D is the 5th of G, and G is the 5th of C. And as I move up the circle of fifths, I will get the right amount of sharps according to the position on the circle. So E is at 4 o'clock, you will have 4 sharps. B is at 5 o'clock, and it will have 5 sharps. A sits at 3 o'clock, and it has 3 sharps. Now, which sharps are those? It's this list down here. Okay, so B will have The F, the C, the G, the D, and the A, and they will all be sharp. Okay? So that's pretty simple. That's pretty simple. Now, you could find out about all this simply by doing that formula I told you about. So you could start counting from E and go, okay, E, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, and you will actually end up with the right sharps. Let's do it. E, whole step, F sharp, whole step, G sharp, half step, A, whole step, B, whole step, C sharp, whole step, D sharp, and half step back to E. We have 4 sharps, and they are in order. They are E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp. And they're right here, the first 4 sharps. All right? I'm going to stop for just 1 second and let you ask questions, because you are worryfully or worrisomely quiet today. I want to make sure that you're following. And that nobody's fallen asleep on the floor or just lost their senses. So give me a little bit of feedback, if you want to go over something again. All right, Gonzo is atento a todo. Very good, very good. Good. If you have any questions, now it's not a bad time to ask them, because then we're going to go so far so good. Great. All right. Well, I trust the silent ones are okay too. If not, please feel free to join. Don't be shy about joining the chat room. They're quite cool people out there, and they're always helping each other. So feel free to contribute. Nobody's judging you. There's no dumb questions. It is okay. All right. Great. So we're gonna stop a little bit here where it says B, because we could keep going. So we could say, what is the fifth of B? The fifth of B is F sharp, and it will have 6 sharps. And what is the fifth of F sharp? And it will be C sharp, and it will have 7 sharps. So all the notes will be sharp. And what is the fifth of C sharp? It's G sharp, and now we have 8 sharps, which means one of those notes will be double sharp. And you can go all the way up and end up at 11 o'clock with, you guessed it, 11 sharps, which is stupid. Okay, because 11 sharps means every note is sharp, and 4 of them are double sharps. So you'll actually find G double sharp instead of an A. So that's not a very smart way of doing it, and that's why the circle of fifths is sometimes called the circle of fourths. It's called the circle of fourths because if we move from C in this other direction, the empty one, we should be moving by fourths instead of fifths. Now, the reason is very simple. If we go the regular way, it's called the circle of fifths because we just said that C, D, E, F, G. Okay, so from C to G, we're going up a fifth. But when you invert a fifth, you get a fourth. So G, A, B, C, right, is a fourth. Which means that if we read the circle clockwise, we're reading it as fifths, like we just did. But if we decide to read it backwards, counterclockwise, then we're seeing fourths, we're progressing in fourths. And there's an advantage to it because now we can skip all those stupid 11 sharp scales and instead take advantage of the fact that there's flats. Okay, so to do that, we're going to work our way now from C. We're going to work our way that way. Okay, so that way, because we're moving backwards, we have to count up in fourths. And very simple, what is the fourth of C? C, D, E, F. So F is the fourth of C. What is a fourth? It's very simple. A fourth is 5 half steps, 5 semitones. And you should know because we did a whole video on intervals on the guitar. And so you can go back and watch that as well. And if I remember, I'll post links. But you can see now that from C, we go down to F. Now, if we insist in calling it the circle of fifths, we could count up from F to C, and everything is fine. F to C is a fifth. F, G, A, B, C. Okay? But now we want to find those empty slots there, so we're going to work our way back in the fourth direction. So from C to F is a fourth. And the only thing that changes here is that instead of adding sharps, we're going to add flats. And so the result is that C major has no sharps and no flats, but F major has one flat, not one sharp like G, because that's going that way. F has one flat. And as a matter of fact, now we're going to continue down the circle, this way, and we're going to find scales that have all the flats. And so which flat would it be? Here's the great news. Down here, you saw that from the sharps, we will go up this way. But now if we start from the flats, it's the same exact order, we just go backwards. So it's really simple again. The first flat that appears is the B. So the result is that F major only has one flat, and it will be the B. And we can test it, of course. We could do the time-consuming way of doing things, which is applying the formula, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Let's apply to F, whole step, G, whole step, A, half step, B flat, whole step C, whole step D, whole step E, half step F. So indeed, we are in the correct spot. We have a major scale with only one flat, and that flat is the correct one, is B, all right? Now, like we did before, we can just work our way down. So what is the fourth of F? The fourth of F, or perfect fourth of F, is B flat. B flat is 5 half steps above F, okay? So from F to G is a whole step, from G to A is another whole step, so that's 4 half steps, plus 1 half step, it's 5 half steps to get to B flat. So B flat is the fourth of F, and therefore we'll have an extra flat in the scale. Now, what flat is it? Extremely simple again. It's the same flat as before, plus 1, which is the E. You see? So again, we don't have to learn every scale from 0. It's just the same order. What we need to learn is the order of these 7 notes. Oh, sorry, I'm moving the mouse, but you can't see that. Here, the order of these notes. You know, we'll get to that in a little while, but that's all you have to know. So B flat has 2 flats. And now I won't go over the whole thing again, but indeed, you can go from B flat. What is the fourth of B flat? That's E flat. What is the fourth of E flat? That's A flat. What is the fourth of A flat? And that's D flat. So these are all the fourths. And they do add one flat each. So when you get to A flat, you'll get 4 flats. And there will be these down here, B, E, A, and D. When you go to D flat, you will have 5 flats, B, E, A, D, and G. All right? So right now, we've done the most economical thing possible. We've kept the number of accidentals, which means sharps and flats, we've kept it to a minimum. Correct? We don't want those 10 sharp scales, and we don't want to continue counting here. What is the fifth of D flat? What is the fourth of D flat? What is the fourth of that, and work our way all up here with 10 flats if we can have 2 sharps, right? So that's we've done it in the most intelligent way and the most economical way and the easiest way to remember. But there's this little thing down here, the little one at 6 o'clock, that we've left empty. And the reason that I left it empty is that it doesn't matter how you look at it, it will always have 6 accidentals, because B major has 5 sharps, and the fifth of B is F sharp, and it will have 6 sharps. And then D flat on the other side has 5 flats, but the fourth of D flat is G flat, which is the same as F sharp, and it has 6 flats. So there's no real advantage in picking one over the other, and so usually you'll find it written like this. Okay? Whereas, for example, C sharp would have 7 sharps, but why do that if I can call it D flat and only have 5 flats? I'm saving 2 accidentals. I'm getting back to natural notes that are easier to play, that are easier to find, that are easier to calculate when I'm doing chords and arpeggios and improvisation. So I want to keep it as simple as possible, but at 6 o'clock, there's no real advantage here. I'm still getting 6 accidentals. If it's G flat, it's 6 flats, and if it's F sharp, it's 6 sharps. you noticed that I have the G flat as big as all the other notes and the F sharp small. And the reason is that I'm going to give you a little trick that I find always useful, and that is that since they are the same, G flat and F sharp don't give me any advantage over each other. They both have 6 accidentals. I think it's smarter to have a G flat, because then I can just think that every single major scale in the world is either natural, F, C, G, D, A, E, and B, or flat, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat. That's it. So if I'm playing on the guitar and I'm on a fret and it's not a natural note, I will just call it, as long as I'm playing major, I will just call it flat, because there's no advantage in calling it F sharp, but there's a big disadvantage in getting it wrong further up the circle. So calling E flat major that only has 3 flats, calling it D sharp major. Now that's a big problem, because D sharp major has 9 sharps. You see what I mean? It's a lot easier to do E flat major with only 3 flats. And so to avoid confusion and to avoid the chance of getting it wrong, I always suggest that you call G flat, G flat, which, making a rule a bit bigger, is that every major scale you'll ever play should be called either a natural major scale, so C major, G major, A major, or a flat major scale, B flat major, A flat major. So never call a major scale sharp, never do A sharp major, never do C sharp major. So, and to remember that, never do F sharp major. It's not going to be a problem specifically the F sharp major, but why get into that when you can get away with just doing G flat? All right? So this is it for the major scales. This is it. There's no other major scales. And of course, I'm going to wait now. Now please do write your questions. Any question, how to apply it, if there's any doubts, if you wanted to use it with other things. But the main thing here is that this is all good for the major scale. But really you can build a circle of fifths on any scale. And the other very common circle of fifths, which we won't get into today because you need to really process this before we get into it, would be the minor circle of fifths. So it would be, okay, which minor scale only has no sharps or flats? That's A minor, right? But which minor scale has, 2 sharps? And then you have to know which one it is, which is B. And then which one has 3 flats? It's C, right? So there's going to be another circle of fifths, which with its own rules, they're very simple, but it will give you the basis for doing all your minor harmony and melody. And the reason that that's important is that mainly you can divide the musical universe in these 2, basically, I'm talking 95% here, into these 2 groups, based on major, based on minor. So when you're based on major, this is your friend, because any variation on this, you can just go back to this. You have, for example, if you have a mode of the melodic minor scale and it's called the Lydian dominant, you can just modify one of these scales and it will get you there. And if you instead have an exotic kind of minor mode or harmonic minor mode, you can probably just go out and modify the minor circle of fifths. So this is 1/2 of the equation. But it is true that the minor circle of fifths is extremely simple if you know the major circle of fifths very well. So I would suggest you practice this if you haven't yet. And the way I would do it is, go over this video a few times to understand it, but really you need to memorize it. You need to actually, if I close my eyes, I see it, if I want to, and it's not haunting my dreams, but if I close my eyes, I can visualize the whole circle. As a matter of fact, I can visualize a lot of circle of fifths. And but this one specifically, I know exactly where everything goes. And the main way to do this is, it's very simple. You just get a piece of paper, or actually a notebook, and every day you draw the circle of fifths. You draw it like 20 or 30 times every day. And in no time you'll have it. So in the beginning you can copy it, right? And then you go like, okay, well, I did 50 yesterday copying it. Maybe I can, I can try to get it into my head. And maybe what you can do is this, okay, which ones I remember. And it's possible that you will remember the G and the F Probably you remember the one at the bottom because it's weird. It's the only one with two names, which you can actually call just G flat. It's okay. You know, you can do that, and then you can go like, okay, well now let me just do one without looking, and then you correct it. And then you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. You can fill it up 3 by 3, like C, A, G flat, and E flat, and then go the G, the E, you know, do that. You can kind of mix it up a little bit, but in the end, you should be able to just see it in your mind. You can see the whole circle in your mind. And also you should add this little thing at the bottom here, because the circle of fifths without this, it doesn't do much, because if you know that E has 4 sharps, but you don't know which ones they are, you know, that's a problem. So you should also write down this series every day, and you should actually just, when you're out and about, you just say it in your head, F, C, G, D. And there's a little trick. You see the first 2 notes, they're F and C, right? Wait, F and C. Now, if you add 1 note to each one of these, you get G and D, right? Because G is F plus 1 and D is C plus 1. And then you add another one. So it's A and E. You see they go 2 by 2. And then there's B. Yeah, you see it's pretty simple. And with the flats, you have, if you memorize the B and the E, then you go down 1 note. B and E become A and D, which are B and E minus 1. And any A and D, you can go down 1 and go G and C. And then F is G minus 1. Right, so that's another trick. But that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple. And people get intimidated by it, and they don't study it. And it's truly one of the most incredibly useful things you can do, because it will open up a lot of understanding. And it just, you know, it's part of the thing. And I always say there's 3 things every guitar player should know. And one of them is the circle of fifths. Then there's the intervals, knowing every interval from any other note. So which is the sixth? What is the minor sixth of F? You have to know is D flat. What is the major third of A? C sharp. And the major third of C sharp is E sharp. You know, you should know that, which we did a video on also, so go check it out. So that's the other one. And the third is knowing everything on the fretboard, so all the notes, which also we did a video. So basically I cover my 3 pillars of music, which I believe are truly important: the notes on the neck, the circle of fifths, and all the intervals. With these 3 things, there's pretty much nothing you cannot work your way back to. So if you study something that's difficult, you can go like, okay, well, I don't get this 100%, but I can go back 1 step and I know it. And so the circle is extremely important. Steve-O, just written the order of sharps on another piece of paper since I can't fit it on my 10 by 10 circle stuffed with info. Have made it, but often forget to actually use it or really learn it. Yeah, you know, the circle of fifths, it uses a lot of space because there's all that empty space in the middle. So get a nice notebook, you know, and every day write it down like 30 times or 40 or 50. The more you do it, the more you'll have it. And then once you learn it, you never have to go over it again. You know, it becomes part of what you know. All right? So, understood, playing along, great, it is okay. Hasta aquí bien. All right, so it seems like you're all, well, those of you who are in the chat room, if you're watching this from the future, it might be a little harder because you won't be able to ask questions, but please use the comments. I know that live videos have a lot fewer comments because people tend to comment on the chat, but I keep an eye out for all the videos. If somebody asks something and I can help, I try to, or maybe gives me an idea for another video. So if you're watching this later, feel free to just write down your questions in the comments, and I try to answer in the comments. Otherwise, I will keep it in mind, and these people can attest to the fact that I tend to listen to questions and suggestions and make videos on them. So feel free to do that. And if you're in the chat room, I'm going to give you a few minutes to write your questions. They can be about this, or if you have any other questions, you know that every Saturday we open it up. So feel free to ask about anything. Actually, I'm going to leave this up for a couple more minutes. Have some tea. And I don't know what else to tell you, actually. Today I was all about the circle. So, Roger. All right, so you got it. Cool. Well, it seems like you guys have no questions today, which is, on one hand, is bad, but on the other, it's very good. So I'm happy that everything is clear. You can ask about anything, of course, if you know, if anything about the song you wanted to know, or that's another thing I wanted to comment on, and I always forget. that I play these just, you know, because I think it's cool, and because if you talk about stuff, you should be able to do it. And that's another thing that to me is important, you know, talking about making videos that teach people stuff. And I don't want to come off as like, you know, because I know how to, you know, but truly, if of your own volition, you know, and initiative, you go out of your way to teach people stuff, you might as well make sure that you know what you're talking about. So one reason I play is just to let you guys know that if we're going to talk about a little something about composition or about technique or about performance, then you can go back and you can figure out for yourself. You can say, well, why is he talking about this stuff and he plays so badly? Or, wow, you know, he can play, you know, that's the main thing, that you can get an idea that is not all theory. You know, it's practical stuff, and I can just tell you how I use it, but at least you see that I'm using it. That's one reason I'm playing. And the other thing is because I like it, and because I think live music is great, and this is the next best thing now with COVID. But also because some of the songs and the way I play them maybe will give you inspiration for a question or for something, a technique you wanted to look at, and you see me playing and you go like, well, could you get into that? You know, so feel free to comment on all the songs, and if there's any questions about the song specifically or the techniques involved in them, please feel free to ask. All right, so I'm gonna give you 1 minute or two for your questions. If not, maybe we'll have an early end of the video today, but I hope you could follow along and that it was useful. So in the meantime, I don't know, what should I do? This. Guitar players know how to do this, right? All right. So the worst thing is that I don't know how much of a delay there is. So maybe you guys are all writing stuff down, and I will close the chat room, and then I will get the questions later. All right. So I'll do some housekeeping in the meantime, and if not, we'll close the video. As I said, if you're new, please do subscribe, because of course it helps, but also because I know a lot of people are not getting notified when we go live, and then I get messages later. But usually, you know, we're always on at the same time on the same day. Oh yes, next week I might not be able to do a video because I might be traveling, and if I'm traveling, I'll be traveling at exactly the time where we should be on. So maybe there won't be a video. Maybe there will be a prepared one, like one of those premiere events. Or maybe we'll just keep it for the next week, okay? And because we did a travel edition a few weeks ago, but that was different. I don't know exactly where I'll be and if I have access to the internet or to a guitar to do something useful next week. And so next week maybe there won't be a session, a live stream, but of course I'll be back the next one. Maybe use the circle to play progressions of chords. Okay, well, you know, that's what I didn't want to get into today, the uses of the circle of fifths. But one use is to change keys. So it's to modulate from one key to another. So if you are, let's say you're playing in A major, because each of these chords are the dominant chords of the previous step. So A is the fifth chord of D, and D is the fifth chord of G, and G is the fifth of C. It's sometimes used to modulate from one key to the other. So for example, if I'm playing in A major, I can go A major, you know, B minor and C sharp minor, then I go to E, then I go to A, and eventually I will use that A not as the one of A major, but as the fifth of D. And that will help me work my way down the circle of fifths. I've done a couple of things actually about this. We talked about secondary dominance and dominance in modulations in another video, but that's an interesting way of doing it. And as far as playing chords on the circle of fifths, what happens is that's why you have to know this list, right? Because if you want to play chords in E major, you have to know that the F sharp minor is an F sharp, not a regular F, and you have to know that if you play a C in E major, it has to be a C sharp minor, you see? So you need to know not only that it has 4 sharps, but which ones. And then of course, this will give you maybe that's what you were asking about, but this is actually very interesting and important. The circle of fifth gives you the notes of the scale. So E major has 4 sharps, and there are F, C, G, and D. But it also gives you the notes, of course, on which you have to build all the 7 chords. So if you know that every major scale, the chords are major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, diminished, then if you know the 7 notes of the scale, all you do is just apply those chords to those steps. All right, improvise. I'm not plugged in. I'm not plugged in. I unplug I turn off the amp, and yeah. Thanks for making this class. I may get the circles tattooed. Yeah, you know, here on the eyelid, on the inside. So when you sleep, you see it. You just have to have a torch in front of you. Close your eyes, and you can see it. Don't do that, right? Very clear. Thank you. All right, let's play Rock School. You're welcome. All right. Well, it looks like you guys are all good with this. So thank you again for being here. It's good to see some new people as well. And it's always good to see you guys, the usual suspects. And if you have ideas for the next videos, please share. And we have a Q&A very soon. As a matter of fact, next week, if I am available, I will do a Q&A, so I don't have to have gear with me, and we can just, you can ask me any questions you want, and as long as it's not, you know, something that I have to play for you. I have a guitar, I won't have an amp where I'm going, so, but maybe we can do a Q&A if I'm somewhere with the internet. I don't want to waste your time, and then the internet is not working properly, or, you know, stuff like that happens. But I will try to be here 6:30. If not, I will see you in a couple of weeks. Usually you will see the announcement for the live either on Thursday or Friday. If you don't see it by Friday or Saturday morning, you can assume that we won't be here. All right? All right. Gracias. Pues a ti, Gonzo. And you all have a good time. Have a great weekend. Practice a circle of fifths there. And yeah, don't tattoo it on your eyelids, but do write it down like 30 or 40 or 50 times every day, or 20 even. And by the time you get to 100 or 200 or 1,000, you'll never have a problem with it again. All right? Thanks again for watching and for being here. I hope you enjoyed the little song at the beginning, and that you enjoyed the lesson. All right. See you. Any questions, feel free to let me know. All right. Have a good one. Bye.